Revived talks on a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas appear to be making little progress, with the two sides showing few signs that they are ready to compromise on their demands. Israeli objections to the return of displaced residents to their homes in Gaza is a key issue holding up the negotiations, Qatari officials said on Wednesday. Meanwhile, Hamas said that it will not budge on its conditions to release captives it holds in the besieged and bombarded territory. Alongside the United States and Egypt, Qatar has been running behind-the-scenes talks in a bid to secure a truce and the release of Israeli captives in exchange for Palestinian prisoners held in Israeli jails after nearly 6 months of war. Another outstanding issue is the number of Palestinian prisoners to be released by Israel in exchange for each hostage freed by Hamas, Sheikh Mohammed said, noting however that he believed this can be bridged. However, Hamas's senior political leader Ismail Haniyeh said on Wednesday that his movement will stick to its conditions for a ceasefire in Gaza. The Palestinian group insists that an Israeli military withdrawal must happen before it releases the remaining captives taken in its assault on southern Israel on October 7. It has been almost 6 months since Israel launched its most recent onslaught on Gaza, which has now reached genocidal proportions. The Israeli army has killed more than 33,000 Palestinians, injured more than 75,000 and obliterated civilian buildings and infrastructure across the Strip. Israel is currently in violation of the International Court of Justice's (ICJ) provisional measures requesting the protection of Palestinian rights, and the UN Security Council's resolution calling for a ceasefire. Its atrocities in Gaza are part and parcel of its settler colonialism, which infringes on the most basic international legal principles and is a threat to international peace and security. In such a context, all statements of condemnation are empty of meaning if they are not followed by action. Under international law, when international peace is under threat and genocide is being committed, states and corporations have the duty to act. Among the measures they can resort to are embargoes as a form of economic pressure to stop violations of international law. Relief efforts are focused on Hualien, along the rugged and scenic East Coast, where dozens of buildings were left teetering after their lower floors collapsed, bridges and tunnels were destroyed, and roads were damaged by rocks and landslides. In its latest update on Thursday morning, the National Fire Agency said 1,038 people had been injured, while 52 were missing and uncontactable. The death toll remained at 9, all of whom were found in Hualien. 3 people among a group taking a morning hike in the Taroko National Park were killed after the earthquake triggered a rock slide. The fire agency said rescuers were using drones and helicopters to search for people thought to be trapped in the park, which is known for its scenic beauty. About 38 workers on their way to a hotel in the park remain missing after some of their colleagues were found safe. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is facing growing political pressure to stop selling weapons to Israel after 7 aid workers, including 3 British nationals, were killed by an Israeli air attack on Gaza. 3 Opposition parties and some MPs in the governing Conservative Party said on Wednesday the British government should consider suspending arms sales. The Liberal Democrats called for arms exports to Israel to be suspended, while the Scottish National Party also backed that move and said Parliament should be recalled from its Easter break to discuss the crisis. The main opposition Labour Party, which polls suggest will form the next government after elections expected later this year, said the government should suspend arms sales if lawyers had found Israel had broken international law. It's important now that advice is published so that we can all be clear that if there has been a breach in international humanitarian law, and I must say that I do have very serious concerns, that arms sales are suspended, said David Lammy, Labour's foreign policy chief. United States prosecutors involved in the criminal indictment of Donald Trump in Florida have questioned a judge's order that they indicate risks tipping the case in the former U.S. president's favor. Their 24-page filing was issued late on Tuesday, as part of an ongoing case looking into Trump's handling of classified documents after leaving office. In the filing, Special Counsel Jack Smith and his team of prosecutors rebuked Judge Aileen Cannon for ordering that instructions be provided to an eventual jury, suggesting that Trump could have kept the classified documents as part of his personal record-keeping. The judge's order appeared to be a hat tip to the defense's argument that the Presidential Records Act, PRA, entitled Trump to keep the sensitive government documents, something Smith and his team have disputed. That legal premise is wrong, Smith and his colleagues wrote, adding that any jury instruction to that effect would distort the trial. The court filing was an unusual display of public discord between the prosecutors and the judge, who Trump nominated to the bench. Colombia and Panama have failed to protect hundreds of thousands of migrants and asylum seekers crossing a dangerous yet popular jungle migration route between the two countries, Human Rights Watch, HRW, has said. In a report on Wednesday, the rights group said the Colombian and Panamanian authorities have not protected people transiting through the Darien Gap or adequately investigated abuses that have taken place there, including sexual violence. Whatever the reason for their journey, migrants and asylum seekers crossing the Darien Gap are entitled to basic safety and respect for their human rights along the way. Juanita Goa-Bertis, HRW's Americas director, said in a statement, Colombian and Panamanian authorities can and should do more to ensure the rights of migrants and asylum seekers crossing their countries, as well as of local communities that have experienced years of neglect. Connecting South and Central America, the Darien Gap is a dangerous route rife with natural hazards, including insects, snakes, and unpredictable terrain. Its landscape ranges from steep mountains to dense jungles and strong rivers. When the March elections in Portugal saw the hard-right political party, Chega, quadruple its parliamentary representation from 12 seats to 50, one conclusion appeared overwhelmingly obvious. Overnight, it looked as if Europe's most westerly country had become the continent's latest front line between populist, ultra-conservative parties enjoying surging support and more traditional, centrist formations facing crumbling voter backing, the Chega electoral earthquake, and the narrowest of victories for the center-right Democratic Alliance (AD) coalition over the incumbent socialists by just 80 seats to 78, showed how voter support for the two main parties had slumped to its lowest level since 1985. But when it comes to running the country, albeit with much shakier support than they would like, for now Portugal's long-standing political establishment remains at the helm. Turkey's election authority has reinstated a pro-Kurdish mayoral election winner in the eastern city of Van after the annulment of his victory provoked clashes. The Supreme Election Board, YSK, announced on Wednesday that it has overturned a decision by the Regional Election Commission in eastern Turkey to remove Abdullah Zaydin, the candidate of the pro-Kurdish People's Equality and Democracy Party, DM. The reversal is viewed as another boost for the Turkish opposition following Sunday's local elections, which dealt a blow to President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and his Islamic-oriented Justice and Development Party, AKP, after their wins last year in the presidential and parliamentary elections. Zaydin had garnered more than 55% of the vote in the municipal elections on Sunday, but the Regional Electoral Commission claimed he was ineligible to stand due to a previous conviction, and handed the mayoral seat to a candidate from AKP who had won 27% of the vote. The United Nations Children's Agency, UNICEF, has said the number of people killed in Myanmar as a result of landmines and explosive ordnance tripled last year, with children accounting for 20% of the victims. There were 1,052 verified civilian casualties from landmine and explosive ordnance incidents during 2023, compared with 390 incidents the year before, UNICEF said in a statement on Thursday to coincide with International Day for Mine Awareness and Assistance in Mine Action. The use of landmines is not only reprehensible but also illegal under international humanitarian law, said Deborah Carmine, UNICEF Regional Director for East Asia and the Pacific. It is imperative that all parties to the conflict prioritize the safety and well-being of civilians, particularly children, and take immediate steps to halt the use of these indiscriminate weapons. The Black Death, the pandemic of bubonic plague which swept Europe and Asia for about 5 years in the mid-1300s, is widely believed to have reduced the global population by 1/3. But almost 700 years after this infamous pandemic became the last worldwide phenomenon to reduce global population levels by such a huge amount, a new report has warned of the staggering social change posed by plummeting fertility rates, which could also see the number of humans on our planet, currently standing at more than 8 billion, fall within decades. According to a recent global fertility study published in the International Medical Journal, The Lancet. Fertility is declining globally, with rates in more than half of all countries and territories in 2021 below replacement level. Natalia V. Bhattacharjee, one of the report's co-lead authors, said the implications are immense, particularly for countries in Western Europe, which are currently seeing massive unrest over migration levels. These future trends in fertility rates and live births will completely reconfigure the global economy and the international balance of power, and will necessitate reorganizing societies, she stated. The study suggested that Western Europe, where the far right has long made the issue of falling fertility a cause célèbre, faces a particularly steep fall in births in the coming decades and may have to reopen itself to unfettered migration to address the problem. Senegal has inaugurated Bassirou Diomaye Faye as its president, completing the previously little-known opposition figure's dramatic ascent from prison to the palace in just weeks. The left-wing Pan-Africanist was sworn in on Tuesday after sweeping to a first-round victory in the March 24 elections on a pledge of reform. At age 44, he is Senegal's youngest president. Before God and the Senegalese nation, I swear to faithfully fulfill the office of President of the Republic of Senegal, Faye said in Diamniadio, near the capital, Dakar. He also promised to scrupulously observe the provisions of the Constitution and the laws, and defend the integrity of the territory and national independence, and to spare no effort to achieve African unity. The formal handover of power with outgoing President Macky Sall will take place at the presidential palace in Dakar. Faye was released from prison less than 2 weeks before the vote along with popular opposition figure and mentor Ousmane Sonko after a political amnesty announced by Sall. NASA has awarded contracts to 3 companies to develop vehicles for the first crewed missions to the Moon in more than 5 decades. Intuitive Machines, Lunar Outpost and Venturi Astrolab, based in Texas, Colorado and California, respectively, were chosen to create designs for the lunar rover under a contract worth up to $4.6 billion. NASA said on Wednesday. NASA plans to pick one of the companies to carry out a test run for their lunar terrain vehicle before the arrival of the crew for the Artemis 5 mission scheduled for 2029. The U.S. Space Agency said the winning bid will be able to handle the extreme conditions at the Moon's south pole and feature advanced technologies for power management, autonomous driving, and state-of-the-art communications and navigation systems. Jacob Bleacher, Chief Exploration Scientist at NASA's Exploration Systems Development Mission Directorate, said the rover would allow astronauts to travel to locations we might not otherwise be able to reach on foot, increasing our ability to explore and make new scientific discoveries. Thank you for tuning into our news recap today. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more updates. Stay informed, stay engaged, and stay empowered. Until next time, take care and stay safe.